Madam Chair and members of the commission, we're now live.
Good evening. My name is Karen Burdett. I am the acting chair tonight at the July 10th, 2024 Historic Preservation Meeting. As is our custom, I would like our commissioners and staff to introduce themselves, beginning on my left.
Mark Dominiani, Commissioner.
Cristina Arado.
Julie Pelletier.
Michael Galway.
Rebecca Ballo, Historic Preservation Staff.
Dan Bruckert, Historic Preservation Staff.
Chris Berger, Preservation Staff.
Thank you. I would like to note I don't have a screen tonight. So
One moment, we'll have tech staff take
Yeah.
a look.
Yes. Thank you. All right, we're going to begin tonight approving the hops that we feel can be expedited and are on the consent agenda. And I will start with item 1A at 7213 Cedar Avenue, Tacoma Park. Item 1B at 19820 White Grounds Road, Boyds. Item 1D at 3 Quincy Street, Chevy Chase. 1E at 7102 Maple Avenue, Tacoma Park. 1F at 7304 Maple Avenue, Tacoma Park. 1G at 7120 Maple Avenue, Tacoma Park. 1H at 102 East Kirk Street, Chevy Chase. And 1I at 209 Market Street, Brookville. And if there's anyone here to speak on any of the items I have just listed, please come up, fill out a form, and give it to staff immediately. Otherwise, have these work area permits been advertised?
Yes, Madam Chair, they were advertised in the June 26th edition of the Washington Times.
Okay. Then your turn.
Okay. Ms. Vice Chair, hearing no objections, I move that we approve the following historic area work permits in accordance with staff reports, based upon the record before us, and in consideration of the recommendations of the local advisory panels. HOP 1073734 at 7213 Cedar Avenue, Tacoma Park. HOP 1050805 at 19820 White Ground Road in Boyds. HOP 1073386 at 3 Quincy Street in Chevy Chase. HOP 1074837 at 7102 Maple Avenue, Tacoma Park. HOP 1073592 at 7304 Maple Avenue, Tacoma Park. HOP 1074329 at 7120 Maple Avenue, Tacoma Park. HOP 1067931 revision at 102 East Kirk Street, Chevy Chase. And HOP 1075291 at 209 Market Street, Brookville.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Galway, second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any dissents or abstentions? These hops are approved, and staff will deal with all those applicants. We will now move on to the one hop we will be hearing tonight, item 1C at 7105 Cedar Avenue, Tacoma Park. Is there a staff report?
Yes, this is an historic area work permit for 7105 Cedar Avenue in Tacoma Park. It's a contributing resource in the historic district. It's a colonial revival style duplex built in the early 1900s. It's reviewed under the neighborhood's design guidelines, the county code, and the Secretary of the Interior's rehab standards. On the screen is a site plan for the property. As I mentioned, it's a duplex, so our subject property includes half of the building, which is outlined in yellow here. The red marks the location of the 8-foot tall fence, which is in the side yard and then in the rear yard as well. And then the black box is the proposed shed location in the side yard, labeled B here. So first, for the shed, the photo on the left is a mock-up of its footprint in the side yard, and on the right is a rendering of the proposed shed. It will be the pre-cut Handy Home Products Trident model. It will have a 4-inch thick concrete base, wood walls, a transom window over the double wood doors, and a gable roof covered with asphalt shingles. It will measure 12 by 8 feet and stand 9 feet 9 inches tall at its tallest point. It will be set back approximately 55 feet from the right-of-way. Next, for the fence, it's a wire and metal deer fence standing 8 feet tall. The photo on the left shows it in the rear yard with arrows showing where it's located in the corners of the property. And the photo on the right is the segment in the side yard that extends between our subject property, 7105 Cedar, and the neighbor at 7107 Cedar Avenue, which is over here. And here's how that segment in the side yard appears from the right-of-way, again with the arrows showing the location of the fence. It's set back approximately 50 feet from the right-of-way. So first, for the shed, staff supports construction. Staff routinely approves sheds of that size not visible from the right-of-way. So since this shed will be partially visible from Cedar Avenue, it did have to come before the HPC for review. It'll be set back about 55 feet. Chapter 24A8D states that the commission shall be lenient in its judgment of plans for structures of little historical or design significance or for plans involving new construction, unless such plans would seriously impair the historic or architectural value of surrounding historic resources or would impair the character of the district. And staff does not find the shed would seriously impair the historic or architectural value of the surrounding historic resources. And in accordance with Chapter 24A8B, the shed will not substantially alter the exterior features of the historic resource and will be compatible in character and nature with the historic district where small outbuildings like these sheds are common. The shed will also meet the guidelines and standards, rehab standards 2, 9, and 10. For the fence, staff supports its installation. The HPC standard is to limit fence heights to 4 feet tall when they extend beyond the rear wall plane of a building's original footprint. This standard seeks to maintain the openness between houses and historic neighborhoods with the position that fences taller than 4 feet located in side yards create visual barriers between properties and can obscure architecturally significant or notable features of the houses. The segments in the rear yard are set back so far that they are not visible from the right-of-way, but the segment in the side yard, which measures about 30 feet long, is visible but not easily seen from the right-of-way. Staff again reminds the HPC to be lenient in accordance with Chapter 24A8D, unless such plans would seriously impair the historic or architectural value of the surrounding historic resources or impair the character of the district. Staff finds it compatible with the character of the district under Chapter 24A8B, and because of the fence's limited visibility, staff finds a less rigorous review is required under the neighborhood design guidelines. They state that the HPC should be guided by the principles identified in the rehab standards, and staff finds that the largely transparent design of the proposed fence will preserve the character of the property and surrounding district in accordance with standards number 2, which calls for the retention of the historic character of a property. Staff maintains its concern about deer fences in the more urban historic districts of the county, such as Tacoma Park. Considering this proposal's impact on the surrounding district was paramount, in the end, the fence's limited public visibility, coupled with the design's open character that would preserve neighboring property views, were sufficient justifications for staff to recommend approval. And staff recommends these findings do not establish precedent and only apply to the circumstances of this particular property. There is precedent for 8-foot-tall deer fences in Tacoma Park. In 2021, the HPC approved an 8-foot-tall fence in the side and rear yards at 7407 Baltimore Street. And earlier this year, next door at 7403 Baltimore Street, this fence, which you see on the screen, was approved. It's a 6-foot tall chain link fence with 2 feet of extenders on top. Staff seeks 2 conditions. The first is that the applicant receive approval for a fence permit from the Department of Permitting Services before this HOP is issued. And the second condition seeks more information on the footings of the fence posts. And since the staff report was posted, the applicant has provided that information in regarding to the fence posts. Any questions for staff?
Are there questions for staff? Commissioner Galway?
Just out of curiosity, what was the concern with the footings?
Just to make sure that they went deep enough so the fence wasn't going to fall over.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, we will ask the applicant to come forward, and on my form I have Nicolean Van Schoen. Yes, if you care to come forward. Please turn on the mic, the light will turn on green, and identify yourself, and if I butchered your name, I apologize. Van Schoen, thank you. You have, let's see, you have 7 minutes to make any sort of presentation you would like to make. You can say something related to what you would like to do on your property, or you can just ask our questions. So it's up to you. You have 7 minutes.
Ma'am, I'm sorry. Can you please turn on the microphone just right in front of you? Oh, if you just hit the button and it'll turn green. So, and then just speak directly into the mic with your name for the record. Thank you.
Yeah, we were not aware that deer fencing does need permitting, so that's why we felt keeping the deer out and creating a beautiful garden was the main objective of this. And the deer eat almost everything. They change their palate, and either you give up gardening or you try to keep them outside. So that's one issue. I think Tacoma Park has also a house and garden show, so people try to create beautiful gardens. If you have the deer there, you can forget it. So that's one of the main things. And then we tried so hard to keep the fence as much invisible as possible. Now it is planted with evergreens in front, and 2/3 of the fence is already not seen. So it will disappear, and it will just be a green fence and then more landscaping coming. So if we would have known we had to do this, we would have, asked before, but we didn't.
Are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Radu?
Does the fence have footings? I mean, like, the condition was to, like,
The
just
footing?
yeah. I mean, like, it seems like there are some metal, supports. I don't know, maybe like 6 feet on center or something.
Ma'am, I'm sorry. Can you please turn your microphone back on and just talk directly into it? The light will turn green. Thank you.
Now it's on, okay. They have 2.5 feet cast iron sleeves, sort of this in circumference, and they go deep in the soil. And then the post, 8-foot pole, goes in, it's like 10 feet, so 2 feet goes in, that gets screwed tight, it's a solid system. And then the fence material just gets fastened with metal fasteners and pulled tight. And I think the beauty is, even though I don't like them, the beauty is you look right through it. So it looks like it's not there, except the poles you'll see, and that's where you use the planting.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? If not, would anybody like to make some comments? Commissioner Radu?
I agree with the staff report. I think this fence is acceptable. It is very transparent from the photos. I unfortunately didn't get to drive by the property, but the photos, I think, speak to the transparency of the fence, and I like this system more than the one that was in another photograph. Like, we approved at different locations. As staff said, we're not setting necessarily precedent, but I like it more because it doesn't have this top bar. So I think it's a better fence. So I'm in favor of approving this hop.
Any other comments? I concur with Commissioner Radu. I have no issues with either the shed or the fence, and your fence is a much better looking fence. And I hope it's working as well. Would somebody like to make a motion on this hop? Commissioner Radu, thank you.
I make a motion that we approve the hop number 1071932 at 7105 Cedar Avenue in Tacoma Park, with the conditions in the staff report.
Do I hear a second?
This is Commissioner Dominiani. I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions or nays? If not, this hop has been approved, and the staff will work with you with anything else that's required. But congratulations, you have your deer fence. Moving on, we will go to preliminary 2A at 7017 Sycamore Avenue, Tacoma Park. Is there a staff report?
Yes, there is, Madam Chair. This is a preliminary consultation for 7017 Sycamore Avenue in Tacoma Park. It's a contributing resource to the Tacoma Park Historic District that was constructed circa 1921. This is to be reviewed under the Tacoma Park Historic District Design Guidelines, Chapter 24A, the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, and the HPC's recently adopted policy on the appropriateness of substitute materials for deck and porch deck flooring. This is the subject property. It's quite a ways up from the street level. You've got the stone wall and several steps up, and then the slope of the lot continues to rise towards the house. Primary issue that we're talking about this evening is the porch in the front right corner. It is not in its historic configuration, and it's suffering some structural failure. You can see the brick, the settling through the brick and through the slab of the porch, and more settling and cracking. And then they're also proposing to replace the pressure-treated rear deck. So again, just to reiterate, they're demolishing the existing front porch, constructing a new front porch with a slightly enlarged footprint and a new stair location, and they're proposing to demolish and replace the non-historic rear deck. This is site plan. This is a proposed site plan. Hatched in is the expansion of the size of the porch and the run of the new stairs. And you can see, based on the topo lines, just how steep it is at the front of the house. So these are existing conditions. You can see the porch columns on the right side are not spaced evenly. The sort of several feet were captured to make a foyer. So the porch has been altered from its historic appearance to what we get today. Also, there are several different types of brick in the porch, so that sort of demonstrates that it was constructed in several phases or repaired piecemeal over time. And again, the proposal is to slightly expand the porch. The pitch of the roof is going to flatten out a little bit, but it comes forward. The columns are now evenly spaced. It's on brick piers with lattice in between, and a wood railing with an Erratus composite decking and stair treads. And then again in the back, the applicant proposes to install a Trex deck in a slightly enlarged footprint from what is there currently. Again, the floor plan. So with the easy stuff, staff finds the existing pressure-treated wood deck is not historic, nor is it visible from the public right-of-way, and its removal should be approved as a matter of course. Under the policy 2401, a substitute material is acceptable for the rear deck, railing, and stairs. So staff also finds that the porch has been modified from its historic configuration. Staff finds that the porch suffers from significant structural issues and that its front stairs are steeper than required under current code. And if this were a HOP, staff would recommend the HPC approve its demolition under 24A8B2, 4, and D. And staff finds that the enlarged porch, which is only 1.5 feet wider and 3 feet deeper, will not detract from the overall character of the house or the surrounding district. And staff finds that the materials proposed for the front porch are appropriate under both Chapter 24A and the HPC's interpretation under Policy 2401. And just as a reminder for contributing resources, they can use compatible substitute materials. I do have the text of that policy if any of the commissioners would like to refer to it. So staff does have concerns regarding the compatibility of the angle of the front stair run. Staff finds the angle obscures some of the front porch and it's not typical of craftsman architecture. Staff's initial design revision recommendation was to have the stairs load from the left side along the house and then turn 90 degrees towards the front walk. And the applicant, between the time the staff report was written and now, has provided 3 alternatives for discussion, which we'll share with you at the end. So again, the questions for the HPC for tonight's hearing is, does the HPC concur with staff's finding that the new porch is appropriately sized in details to be compatible with the existing historic house? Does the HPC concur with staff's finding that the proposed erratus flooring is appropriate under 2401? And does the HPC concur with staff's finding regarding the angle of the front stair run? For the rear deck, staff requests feedback from the HPC regarding the use of Trex for the rear. In the staff report, staff noted that Trex is not typically a recommended material based on its overall physical characteristics. So even though the policy states that substitute materials may be used, usually a higher quality of material that is millable and paintable, or at least millable, has been recommended, although this is a new policy, so we're sort of feeling some things out. And we can refer back to these if you'd like, but I will answer any questions that you have at this time.
Are there any questions for staff? Commissioner Diminiani.
This is Commissioner Damiani, thank you. Have there been any other approvals for homes with a 45-degree angle stairs with a landing like that? I'm not familiar with any, given my experience in Tacoma, but I found it to be unusual as well.
Not to my knowledge. I mean, some of it is just, if we can go back up to the site plan, the unique topography of this specific lot. You know, it's the site wall at the front is nearly 5 feet tall, and then you have an additional 10 feet of elevation gain from the top of the stairs to the house. So sort of, but for the steepness of the existing stairs, we would have a straight run and it would make sense. But to have a straight run would require reorienting the rest of the hardscape in the front yard.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I have one. On the plan that's on the screen now, the stair at the bottom at the street, that is the existing stair that's indicated, correct? So the curve is
in there, yes.
Is existing.
That's existing condition.
okay. If there are no more questions, then the applicant can come forward, and I've got Rolf Reichel and Amy Schwenkmeyer are the owners, and Brian McCarthy, architects. And if you will please turn on the mic and identify yourself, and you have 7 minutes to make a presentation.
Thank you. My name's Brian McCarthy. I'm with Bennett Frank McCarthy Architects. Regrettably, one of my clients, the husband, Rolf, is traveling, and Amy was meant to come with me, but she fell ill this afternoon. But hopefully it's going to be straightforward. Dan's done a fine job of summarizing the situation. I would echo his comment that the stair is essentially angled, not as a matter of whimsy, but just to respond to the existing site conditions of the existing paving and the angled approach from Sycamore Avenue up the stone steps. And there was also staff commentary on some of the material choices. We're by no means wedded to Trex. I wasn't aware that it was unfavorably viewed by the commission, so we're certainly open to alternatives. I know the product we're proposing to use in the front has been approved. That is on the expensive side, so they'd be hoping for an alternative to that in the back. The current deck is pressure-treated lumber, pressure-treated 2x6s, I believe. And there was one mistake, which I noted to Dan after I got his staff report. We also, the drawings erroneously note that we were proposing to use Trex as the cladding on the stringers on the front stair, and that's not correct. We're proposing to use Boral, which we're proposing to use on the columns as well, which is basically a synthetic substitute for wood that we find feels like wood, tools like wood, and looks like wood once it's painted.
Thank you. If there are any questions, Commissioner Pelletier.
Thanks. What kind of grading issues would you have in the front? Or I don't want to say grading issues, but how much extra work is it to make this a straight run stair? Because I noticed it does follow what's existing. If you were going to bring it straight out, do you have to like build up the yard basically to get it?
Yeah, it'd either be raising the topography at the base of the stair, if we want to keep the same number of steps, or adding additional steps at the bottom to reach the lower grade. Obviously, the further out we go, the closer to the street we get, the lower the grade is. And then, of course, there's the issue of modifying the paving to conform to the bottom of the stairs if they go straight out, because that's currently not paved.
Okay, thanks.
Any other, Commissioner Galway?
Commissioner Galway, on your drawing, just to clarify, you note new painted wood railing and the Aratus plank treads. Are you planning on painting those, or are they be a natural color?
Yes, I believe they would paint the floor like an old-fashioned porch.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Commissioner Redu?
Not a question relevant for the architect, but I thought the staff report noted that there were other solutions proposed. Can we see them?
Yeah, so
Or
I think it would be best to have the project architect walk you through these, but they're up on your screen now, and
Thank you.
have at it.
Okay, the first A is, that is the proposal of taking the stair straight out. I don't know that we have increased the number of steps, so that approach would assume that the paving that is now put in parallel to Sycamore would be elevated, or it would be closer to the street and the steps would go a little further out. B is the steps coming down parallel to the back of the porch, which does not land further out in the yard. The concern there is that we were trying to have the opening to the staircase centered between the columns, partly for architectural reasons, but mostly so that when they furnish the porch, they can put furniture to either side of an aisle, because the door is centered on that central access to the middle of the porch. So it's a furnishability question. And then C is sort of a combination of that, where we maintain the central access to the porch, come down to a landing, and instead of turning 45 degrees, we turn 90 degrees. And that, if that is the client's preference, if the angled stair is unacceptable.
And this is Commissioner Burdett. I guess my first question would be, looking at the photographs of the damage to the porch, the settlement, have you looked into what is causing the damage, and will there be further excavation required beyond what you might have to do just to replace the porch?
I don't believe so. I think the problem is that someone 100 years ago poured concrete on a backfilled section of earth that they packed in between the foundation walls of the porch. And over time, that soil has compressed and settled, and the slab that was sitting on top of it probably didn't have any rebar, and it's cracked.
Okay.
So once we clear all that out and put in freestanding brick piers, and it'll be supporting a wood floor system, so we shouldn't have any of those problems. And the brick piers themselves don't seem to have suffered so much as the things in between them.
Okay, thank you. I think that was my only question. If there are no more questions, then we can go into deliberations. If anybody would like to start with their comments.
I had one quick question.
Oh, we have one last question. Commissioner
This is
Pelletier?
actually really more for staff. Is C the staff's preferred configuration?
So staff's initial thought was to actually have the stairs come out and be side loading immediately off the porch and run like along the front wall of the house before making the turn. I note that would obscure a window in the house as part of that. So it's, but yes, having sort of a straight run and then a turn away from the porch was the initial thought process
A
behind.
90-degree? Yeah, okay, thanks.
That was just more consistent with the Craftsman design.
Would anybody like to start with their thoughts and comments? Commissioner Pelletier?
Looking at all of these options, I think I like A the best, but it seems like there's going to be a lot of grading that's going to be required in the yard. I don't really have an issue with the 45-degree because it's simple. I think when I look at these, they look a little bit tortured, whereas the other one kind of follows your existing landscaping. So in general, I'm supportive of the porch. I think making it bigger, you're not even going to notice that it's bigger, but it'll be nice. It doesn't have any cracks in it. I'm supportive of the how do you pronounce it? Aratus? That material. I would prefer to see that on the back deck as well. But I'm not sure that is supported by our new guidelines. But in general, I'm supportive of the project, and I'm supportive of the turnings, the 45 on the stairs. I don't have an issue with that really. So that's all from me.
Commissioner Radu?
I agree with Commissioner Pelletier. I mean, just looking at the stones there, it is at an angle. It's in the district, so maybe this is already not the typical access to a bungalow, maybe. But just because almost like this one sets the precedent, I don't have a problem with the 45 degrees. And I'm looking at the angle, and it seems like the 45 degrees keeps the landing, the first landing at the stair, low enough that you're still seeing the porch. So yeah, I don't have a problem with that. So, but I think if other commissioners don't agree with that, looking at the three ones on the screen, I'm more like between B and C, not really A. So. And I don't have a problem with even with track at the back. In my opinion, that's not visible. It's a contributing resource, and that's really a non-historic deck. So I wouldn't have an issue with that material.
Commissioner Galway?
Commissioner Galway, I agree with both previous commissioners. I think of the A, B, and C plus your proposed 45 degree. I think it works nicely in plan, and I think given the location of the building high up on the site, I'm surprised it wasn't built that way originally. So I think it works well. The massing is fine. It doesn't detract from the rest of the home. So I think that's fine. I asked a question about whether they anticipated painting the Eratus or not, and the reason is really only to do with the edge, and our criteria indicates, has a finished edge that appears to be a cut solid board, and I'm a little bit iffy on that. When I look at the edge of an Eratus board, they make a cap, and I think they do so in some cases because I'm not sure they're convinced that it looks like regular wood. I think putting a coat of paint on it, you would never know. But if it was just the pre-finished one of their 4 colors or whatever it is, I think in that situation, I might have a little bit of heartburn with the product because of that one issue. But as a surface, it's really tough to tell. I think it's an appropriate product. In the rear, again, I think given there's not a chance that you can see that deck from the street or from passing by, I think you have some latitude there on what product you might use. Thank you.
Commissioner Dimignani?
My comments will sound similar, I think, to the others. I find the porch to be appropriately sized. Eratus flooring is okay. The flooring in the rear should be fine as well. I do think that the 45-degree angle still is a bit uncommon for homes of this type. I understand how it responds to the topography on the front of the yard there. Between the proposed 45 and A, B, and C on the screen, I think C would be the most appropriate given the Craftsman style. However, that or the 45 are my 2 preferences. I understand the long straight run on A will be a bit too long and require a grading in the front, which I think is undesirable, and B is, as Commissioner Pelletier said, I find to be a bit tortured, that zigzag effect. So I could find it to be approvable, I think, with C or perhaps the 45-degree, and everything else looked great, so thank you.
And I concur with the other commissioners with the porch, enlargement is fine. And I must admit, when I first saw your original layout for the stair, I thought, 45, no, not going to happen. And then I started thinking about it, that in a lot of the houses of this era that are local, they're on pretty flat lots, or at least lots that you can just go straight down and out. But if you think of other parts of the country where there's much steeper grades, the Pacific Northwest or up in New England, where the steps did meander down to the street level, then something like this wouldn't be unusual. It's just not what we see typically around here. So I have to agree that after consideration, I don't have a problem with your original 45-degree angle. If you wish to go that way, I think my other preference would be C, but I think it's really up to you at this point. As far as the deck and back, no one can see it. They can use what they want. I'm not a big fan of Trex. I think you should look at other products, but that's just a personal opinion on my part. And I think the comments you've heard here are generally in support of your project. Oh, and there's going to be one more comment. And you can talk with staff about different materials that we've looked at and which ones are better or not. And just in case anybody's thinking about it, Epay, I understand, is not, it's been over-harvested, so it's not as available as it used to be, even though it's expensive. And it works really well, but you might want to take that off the list. Commissioner Pelletier.
I just had a comment about the landing on the 45.
Okay.
And just make sure it meets code. It's sort of, it's having an identity crisis between being a winder and being a landing. And you may end up, I'm just curious if you've studied that or if the stairs may end up coming out a bit to make it more of a
Yeah, we might have to
landing.
put one of the upper risers at the bottom,
Okay,
where it hits the
That's it.
landing. But no, good point.
that's all. Thank you.
Well, I think in closing, you can bring this forward as a HOP and work with staff to put that package together for us, and hope to see you soon.
Great, appreciate your help.
Thank you. Moving on, we are going to move on to preliminary 2B at 5808 Surrey Street, Chevy Chase. Is there a staff report?
Yes, there is, Madam Chair. This is the Staff report for the second preliminary consultation tonight at 5808 Surrey Street, and it's in Chevy Chase, but it's in the Somerset Historic District. So the way Somerset breaks down their properties, you're either pre-1915 or post-1915. But they don't differentiate how these properties are to be evaluated. Everything needs to be reviewed under the Somerset Historic District Amendment, Chapter 24A, and the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. So the property's here. It's about smack dab in the middle of the district. And the subject property is comprised of actually 3 lots. So this is viewed from Dorset. This is looking towards the house. The house has a Surrey Street address, but is in no way visible from Surrey Street. So it's completely surrounded. We'll get to the site plan in a minute. And the applicant proposes to construct an accessory dwelling unit in the southwest corner of the subject property, which is approximately where that little sapling is, right there. And the construction of the ADU will necessitate additional hardscaping, and the applicant proposes to install solar panels on the roof of the ADU. So again, this is the site plan with topography. There's an updated site plan which it had sort of too much going on to present as part of this. I can pull it up if you need to, but there is a stepping stone path that runs immediately to the east from the proposed deck. So this is the subject property, again, with its 2014 approved rear addition and shown in elevation. And this is the design of the ADU. So it's a very simple contemporary design with single pane windows, single pane door, the gable to the rear, which projects out to the west away from the lot, includes the bathrooms and the mechanicals shown here. And then the solar panel arrangement has changed a little bit from the original proposal to what you see on the right, and it's oriented so it matches the house matches the ADU on the left. So staff is uncertain about the zoning requirements for this interior lot and has requested additional information about the appropriateness under code of the selected location. Staff finds the size of the ADU will not overwhelm the character of the site or the surrounding district, and staff finds that the design of the ADU is generally consistent with the approved 2014 addition. Staff finds that non-historic accessory structures are one of the preferred locations for solar panel installations and finds that the panel orientation is generally appropriate. Staff finds that some of the building materials have not been evaluated by the HPC, including the Versatex siding, fiberglass door, and Windsor vinyl windows. And I think there's going to be some show and tell as part of the applicant's presentation. So staff recommends that the HPC request samples of these materials with the HOP to thoroughly evaluate the proposed materials. Just a note, aluminum-clad windows and doors have consistently been determined to be appropriate for new construction and building additions in the Somerset Historic District. And the 2014 edition was constructed with metal-framed windows. Staff was unable to identify the window spec that was approved for that in the construction drawings, but the application and staff report and the 2014 approval did say metal-framed windows. So for tonight, staff request feedback from the HPC regarding the appropriateness of the proposed location, including any materials related to zoning compliance. In the staff report, staff did identify potentially locating it to the north of the property, which would make it less visible from the public right-of-way. The appropriateness of the design and style of the ADU and any specific design revisions recommended, and the appropriateness of the proposed materials and any material samples requested with the historic area work permit. And with that, I will answer any questions that you have.
Are there any questions? Commissioner Galway.
This is Commissioner Galway. I'm a little, can you go back over the site plan? In the report, the staff report, you had a figure 2 and it showed the 3 lots, and I'm a little confused on where do you drive to the property? Where would you walk by? Just kind of orient me if you would, please.
Right. So I'm sorry that I didn't get figure 2 copied directly over, but so if you're looking at figure 2, you access it from Surrey Street, which is all the way on the right. So there is actually an easement that runs down here that goes to Surrey Street. and it's accessed from the east, but because of the house here, you'd never see the subject house from Surrey. Now, these two lots to the south are in common ownership. They are undeveloped, but you can see from Dorset Avenue north to see the house's south elevation, and then you would be able to see the ADU, again, in sort of the location where the cursor is on your screen now.
Okay, so that photograph is taken sort of from Dorset, looking across Lot 40 and 41?
So that photo is taken from the existing gravel drive. You can just make out the gravel drive, the corner of it right there.
Okay, so Lot 40 and 41 are towards us?
Yes.
Okay.
And they're separate developable parcels of land. But they are in common ownership and have been.
Okay. And then one last question. You had said in the report, and I may have misheard, but when you were talking about the new windows for the addition or for the small home, you were talking about, did you say single pane or single panel?
Sorry. They'll be dual pane, they're single panels.
Okay, okay. Very good, thanks.
Any other questions for staff? I guess I want to circle back to what Commissioner Galway was asking about the location of the house and the ADU, in that because this is kind of an interior lot, it isn't typically viewed from the street that its address is on. But it would be viewed across these two lots, assuming they would never be developed. But no matter what, the ADU is setting in the plane of the front of the house. So whenever you approach the house, whether it's from the driveway or from looking across Dorset, you will see it's not behind in the back of the house, correct?
Well, I mean, again, it's that's part of the thing that we need to get to the bottom of, because
Okay.
there's sort of two issues as part of that question. One is the strict zoning issue, which is what constitutes the front and the rear. Now, the lines shown on this site plan identify a rear ADU setback and a side ADU setback, showing the western property line is the rear of the property. This is an odd duck in that it's completely surrounded by other buildable plots of land. So that is the zoning issue, that's issue one. And then issue two is how this proposed building would be perceived from the public right-of-way, which is also how the HPC is supposed to consider what the impact of this intervention would be to the site and the surrounding historic district. So, again, in presenting photographs of the site and how this building would be perceived, that's all coming from either on the site or from Dorset Avenue. You wouldn't see anything from Surrey Street under any circumstances.
Yeah.
So, staff is presenting sort of both of those questions as part of this. To make the building, to make the proposed ADU not at all visible from the right-of-way, could this be put in the northeast corner of the property? Under zoning, it would probably require a variance, but would that be granted? And staff's, again, that's a specific zoning question, but would that be to the HPC's preference, or is the appropriate location the one that's proposed? I will add that in 2014, sort of this piece, the western bump out, was built onto the existing structure, and that was referred to consistently as a rear addition. But again, there was no zoning determination as part of that.
And because the two adjacent properties that front on Dorset are undeveloped, they are both currently owned by the applicant?
Well, so they happen to be in common ownership with the subject property by the applicant, but they are undeveloped. They are both buildable lots, and they have Dorset Street addresses. So,
So I guess my question would be, because they're undeveloped, are we supposed to judge this as the view is from Dorset, we concede the house as if nothing is built? Or are we to take into account that at some point in the future, both those properties could be sold and be developed, and then nobody would see the front of the house and the ADU anymore?
So the HPC should review it under current circumstances. Like, what will the impact to the site and the district be for this building the moment it's built? The applicant may have plans to develop those lots, but until we have plans to review that, you can't rely on that. It's the current conditions. And again, that's also, in the absence of any vegetation, there is some vegetative screening and some relatively mature trees along Dorset that do make it difficult to see clearly the whole front of the building in one shot from Dorset, as the photos sort of, as these photos outline. This is me standing on Dorset, and then in the lower right, I moved to a slightly different position and zoomed in on the house. And again, the ADU is sort of going with a tree right there.
And if they did a heavy planting of shrubbery to block the view of the ADU from that location, does that,
So to my knowledge, only Greenwich Forest is the one district that allows you to consider adding vegetative screening. Otherwise, you're supposed to evaluate the proposal in the absence of any vegetation.
Okay.
You could consider sort of a master landscape plan as part of, what that was going in and how that would impact the overall setting of the site. But otherwise, you need to pretend that these trees and bushes aren't there.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for staff? Commissioner Pelletier.
So on the site plan that's called the proposed site plan, there is, wait, I just had it, hang on. They're not showing the ADU on the proposed site plan, right?
Is that the old set of drawings from 2014?
Oh, is that what I'm looking at?
I think that's the previous one.
Okay. Okay, so but based on the plat, this ADU is going to be over 158 feet from the right-of-way on Dorset.
Correct.
Okay. And your photo, can you go back to those photos from
Yep.
Dorset? I didn't have a chance to drive by this one, so I'm kind of going by the photos. So on that left-hand photo, which is just kind of a zoom out of the right-hand photo, right?
Yep.
Like the red car and everything, that's all the same?
Yes.
So where that little kind of twin,
That guy right in the middle?
that guy.
Yep.
Is it going to be kind of right behind that?
Yes, but further.
But further, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the view from Dorset is going to be,
It's a
gonna be
significant
pretty
distance.
tiny.
It's a significant distance from the right of way.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
you're correct. It's over 150 feet from the sidewalk on Dorset Ave.
all the way back to this thing, okay. Okay, all right, thanks.
Are there any other questions for the staff? Okay, if not, then we are going to move on to the applicants. If you'd like to come forward and give your presentation, and I understand you have some materials. Yeah. Ms. Ballo, while they're moving, they have 7 minutes, but us getting down there to look at their stuff isn't counted, right?
It is entirely up to your discretion,
Okay.
Madam Chair. 7 minutes is what is suggested within your executive
Okay.
regulations, but it is up to you if you want to extend that time.
Okay. All right. Ms. Maya Wheel, and Stephen Santos, the architect.
Stefan Santos.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right, if you'll turn on the mic so the lights are green and identify yourselves, you will have 7 minutes to make your presentation. And what I'm going to suggest is you spend the 7 minutes, whatever amount of it you want, presenting the case to us. And then when right before we start asking our questions, then we can all come down and look at your samples of what you're going to show. That way you get your full 7 minutes before we start looking and talking and all of that, okay?
Do you want me to just address like the more of like the concerns, like the location and things like that, or do you want an
It's
overall?
your choice to make whatever case or presentation you want to, because the questions are going to come at you and you can, you'll be answering them then anyhow. So whatever you'd like to say. And you don't have to use the full 7 minutes, obviously, but that's what you're allowed.
I'm Maya Wheel. I own the property. I'm 59 years old and I moved in when I was 8. So our family is the second family to own it after the person who built the house. We bought it from his daughter. So I care deeply about this home. And I'm the one who did the renovation. It was a full house renovation in 2014. It was very well received and has been in magazines, and I wanted to make sure that this ADU is commensurate with all the effort that I put in originally. So, I don't know.
I'm Stefan Santos. I'm from GTM Architects, and we are the architects of the project. So with what Maya was saying, the style of the architecture of the building was very much, we're trying to make it very much in line with the 2014 edition, and we placed it in that location for a couple of reasons. If you'll notice there's a streetscape diagram that was part of the package. We intentionally made it so that the entire proposed structure is not overlapping any part of that elevation, both historic and non-historic components. The reason for the location of that corner is that it's the least evasive corner of any of the corners on the property. So Montgomery County zoning, and we have email correspondences with them, that is the designated required rear yard of this property. Yes, we had the choice to select this corner or the other corner. This corner, the topography is a little bit more flat, even though it's on a hill, but there's no trees that would be affected by this proposed project, whereas the other corner, if you guys refer to the CAS engineering civil site plan, which is what Dan was referencing is the more complete site plan with all the details, all the trees are located on that plan. And so the other corner that we could select, there are 3 trees that would be in jeopardy, plus an existing stone historic retaining wall that we would have to work around with, which would be a little bit difficult. The other corner that we could select, well, we can't really select because we would need a variance, and it's very unlikely that the county would, that the zoning department would give us a variance to put a structure that is clear in their guidelines has to be in the rear yard and not in the front yard. I understand that the property is very unique compared to other properties. But as all of you have mentioned, the proposed ADU is over 150 feet away from Dorset Avenue, and my client could select to sell those lots, and they are by right buildable lots, which will in fact have housing at some point in its future. Right now, there is no intention to do that. She's intending to build the ADU because she intends to live in the ADU to quote unquote downsize, but downsize within the property and be able to rent the main house to somebody else. So I think it's a great project in that she's providing attainable housing in a neighborhood that is not attainable, surrounded by multi-million-dollar homes. But I think it's a great project to bring attainable housing to an area that's close to mass transit and downtown Bethesda and Friendship Heights and so on and so forth. We have a couple of samples to show you the staff report mentioned that there were some questions about the use of vinyl window versus a clad window, the use of vertical siding, and the in-swing door, which is the main point of entry into the structure. So with that, I would like to show you guys samples.
I should also mention, it's really not visible. It's on such a slope that, and the trees are all covering it, very, like, 100-year-old trees. So I don't even think people will realize it's there.
There's actually four, if you scroll down a little bit, I don't know if it will chop it off, but there's 4 trees that are gonna be right in front of that ADU that are part of the other recorded lot, which are not gonna be removed. So that side elevation is mostly covered, and then even beyond, there's other vegetation that will cover it. It's also quite low, so if you compare the proposed floor elevation of the proposed structure is at 320, and the main house is about 5 or 6 feet above that. So the main house from Dorset kind of looks more like on a plinth because it is set a little bit high, but our structure is going to be set on the natural topography. We don't intend to build up the topography in any means.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you. Maybe we all can come down and look at you can explain your samples
Sure.
to us. And it looks like you guys just missed a beautiful rainbow.
Going away.
Oh, it was really stunning.
Oh, I see it.
This is Rebecca Balla with the staff. I would advise, as the commissioners are down at the table and looking at things, if you have, questions that you want to ask the applicant while you're examining the material, just pick up one of the microphones from the table and identify yourself so we can get all that for the record. Thank you.
I'll start with this first. Okay. If you don't mind.
Can you speak into the mic?
Oh, sure, I'm sorry.
Thank you. No worries.
I will hold the mic. So per the staff report, it didn't seem like there were any issues with the Versatech siding, but the physical sample was requested. So this is what it looks like. So it's basically made of the same material as AZAC, which is commonly, it's PVC, yeah, and it's paintable. And we would like to install it in the nickel gap installation method. So basically, there's two versions that you can do. So you can do what's called a V-groove, which I don't really desire, and then there's the nickel gap, which is a little bit cleaner look. So this is the intended installation of what it would look like, and then it would be painted a pretty dark color as per the renderings that were provided.
Mimics the house, the main house.
Right, it mimics the addition part of the house, which also has vertical siding.
Okay.
So that was the reasoning for using that material. Then this is the Smooth Star fiberglass door. It is a paintable door, and this is exactly what it would look like. And it would be painted a dark color to match the siding and the window color.
These are full light doors, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Double pane glass, low E argon, 366. It's Therma-Tru. It's one of Therma-Tru's lines. So.
Yeah, looks like nice restaurant. There to make it, sorry.
I brought this just to see the difference. So this is Windsor's aluminum clad line. So this is a sample of what the clad would look like, which is usually approved by the board. This is Windsor's Next Dimension vinyl series, which is the window that is specified for the project, which is what's in question. So this is an actual window. This is exactly what it would look like, just in a bigger form, since we have bigger panes of glass on the design.
Commissioner
So-
Pelletier, can I get you to talk into the microphone
I'm
for that?
sorry. My question is, why are you not using that's an aluminum clad wood window?
Yes.
Yeah, so why are you using the vinyl over our typical sort of approved spec?
So, the main reason is cost. This exact window in clad, which would look exactly the same, it's just this material versus the vinyl is 3 times more. So it's about another $20,000 added to the cost of the project, which basically pays for the solar panels. So it was a way to kind of balance the cost of the project.
Do you have some kind of, I don't know, data on the fading of the color? I assume you're getting the black window.
Right.
So vinyl, and even in white windows, has a tendency to discolor and fade. Well, it doesn't fade, it turns yellow. But do you have some kind of specs from the manufacturer on the color fastness of the window?
We have, we did provide cut sheets from Windsor. I don't know specifically if what you're asking is included in that material, but I can clarify. I can find out. I mean, it is vinyl, but it's not like your typical Home Depot vinyl window. It's still a good quality window made by the same manufacturer. And then I also wanted to point out that the existing edition that was approved in 2014, the original hop did say metal frame, but then ultimately what was put on there is it is aluminum clad. It's from Pella, so it's Pella's aluminum clad line is what's on the edition. But if we were to compare like the stepping, it's very much very similar to the clad that's there. I personally find that the clad is even more shiny than the vinyl in this particular instance.
My only concern is the longevity of the color of the window. It's nice for a vinyl window. It's a pretty nice window.
It's paintable, yeah?
So
That's a good question.
it can be paintable, but it might affect the warranty from the manufacturer. So some brands allow for that and some don't. And speaking with the vendor, what?
What is the warranty?
The warranty? Well, just like there's the standard warranty of something because you're altering the finish.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Rado. I wasn't worried about like the painting it now. It's more like related to the Commissioner Pelletier's question about the fading of the color. So let's say
Oh,
in 10
yes.
years it fades.
Yeah.
It
You
can be painted.
You can, yes. Yeah, you can. You
Because by
can
then
paint
it'll
it.
probably be out of warranty.
Yeah.
Right,
That's
okay.
what I'm
I understand.
asking.
Yeah, that
It's
makes
like-
sense. That makes
like,
sense.
Does this material have like a 20-year warranty or a 10-year warranty? Which it might be in the information that you gave us.
Right.
I didn't read it that closely, so.
I
so would
believe
be
I think
curious
it's a
to
10-year
know.
warranty, but I'd have to confirm that. But that's a good point. But yes, it is paintable, and that's what the interior would look like. We thought that also that because it's a contemporary structure and it's in line with the single pane glass like the addition, that maybe vinyl could be considered. Since it doesn't have any grills, it doesn't have any SDLs. Usually when we have a project with SDLs, we do clad wood most of the time.
I'm like curious, the aluminum clad window, is it thinner this way? Because these are kind of beefy.
So this particular unit is beefier because it's an operable casement window.
Right.
So if it were a fixed window, the frame would be thinner, which is also consistent with clad. This is just what I literally called the vendor yesterday and was like, could I have a sample of the window? And I was like, do you want an actual window? And I was like, sure, wouldn't hurt. So.
That's it. So that's all of your material.
That's all the materials, yeah.
Okay.
I think these were all the materials in question. I believe the material of the roof, the trim, and the solar panels were
What's the roof? The roof is asphalt.
Correct, yeah, it's asphalt shingles. Architectural asphalt. Yeah, like a Circonti Landmark Pro equivalent, yeah, which the existing house also has.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. We're going to go up there. We're going to go up there and ask questions, okay? So, thank you. So now we're going to ask questions, and Commissioner Radu will start with the questions.
Just one question related to the PV system, because you were talking about the site and the trees around, and it seems like, wouldn't this house be sort of like shaded because it's like the sun, I mean, it's north of the trees.
you're saying with regards to the solar panels? So, if you want to go to the solar panel layout, so the H roof line is the roof line that's going to get the most efficiency from the panels. We thought that it would look nice aesthetically to keep going with the panels on the other roof lines just for consistency, so that from Dorset, you don't have, you don't see the elevation of the gable with like one solar panel on the one side and the other side doesn't have it, so we balanced it out. But yes, like the roof line that's labeled I is not gonna get that much efficiency. However, because this property is so close to the DC Maryland line, my client can sell the power to the DC grid and can make a much faster return on investment than selling it on the Maryland grid. Which is
Okay,
why we're
thanks.
still putting it mostly on the roof line.
Any other questions? Commissioner Pelletier?
Is there a rendering with the solar panels?
There is not.
There isn't, okay. I'd like to see one.
There's an elevation. I think the front elevation shows like a diagram of the panels being stacked.
We just have these nice 3D renderings. It'd be nice to see a more accurate representation of it just with the panels on the
We
roof.
can certainly provide it. It's not that big of a deal.
Okay.
Any other questions? This is Commissioner Burdett. I've got a couple. Why did you choose the more modern appearance as opposed to the more traditional appearance of the house itself? I mean, I understand you were trying to match the addition, but the addition was an addition.
Sure.
It's not the main focus, the main appearance of the house.
Well, the past experience of our firm with the historic board is that most times the board doesn't like when a brand new structure is trying to look old. We actually did a project on the opposite side of Dorset a couple years ago, where we actually started with a traditional structure and the board wanted to see a more contemporary structure. So we kind of took that and kind of rolled with it on other projects, and it has seemed to work in our favor. It is still I would say it is still a traditional massing in that it's not a flat roof. It's still a traditional roof line with trim. It's probably more modern because of the vertical siding and the fact that the windows don't have grills. But I think what's really nice about the property and why my client likes living there is what is the surrounding landscape. And so to have sort of a clear view out, she preferred not to have grills, which I think is consistent with her thought process when she did the addition originally as well.
If there are no more, Commissioner Pelletier.
Sorry, one more question. Why is it so dark? Why is it, like, is the paint, is it really going to be that dark?
So it can't be black because you can't paint PVC black. It's just not great.
But why are you painting it so dark? I mean, you're doing the solar panels, but a dark house absorbs a lot of heat in the summertime. So I'm just curious where the color scheme came from.
So Maya wanted a pretty Scandinavian-looking structure. We wanted to do black windows to match the addition's black windows. We were matching the asphalt roof color. And I think the siding, I think we ended up just it being dark just because it was sort of just to kind of maybe have it blend in more.
It's the same color as the addition.
There's a part of the front elevation, not front, I don't want to say front elevation because it's not the front of the house, but the side elevation that's facing Dorset.
Oh, you can't really see it in that photo.
Right, there's a pretty dark component. It's not vertical siding. It's hardy
Right.
plank.
I see it, yeah.
It's hardy plank panels.
Okay, so you were sort of matching
So we're sort of
that.
trying to mimic that.
Okay. Okay, I mean,
yeah.
that's fine. I was just curious. It seems like with the solar panels, you're trying to be more energy friendly, and making the house really dark is kind of antithetical, sorry, to that.
I mean, the dark, right, I mean, the dark features of a building, it's more the roof line than anything else. So, I don't know that,
Now it'll have solar panels on it, but,
right,
yeah, no, I was just curious about the walls, but that's fine, thanks.
sure.
If there are no more questions, then we will start our comments and deliberation. If somebody like to start. Commissioner Galway.
This is Commissioner Galway. Let me first just sort of feedback on the comments that staff are asking. The first one relates to the appropriativeness of the location, and I'm struggling with this, quite honestly. I understand the site plan and what's considered the west side as the back of the property, but even in your own drawing, you showed, on the drawing 002, you're calling the front, and I'm having a hard time.
I'm sorry, what, do you mind showing me
002,
the sheet?
the front view, front elevation.
So what we call the front elevation is the elevation that has the front door of the ADU, which faces the driveway, which is consistent with the facing of Surrey Street.
No, I'm talking of the home, of the existing home. It's called front elevation in photographs on, there you go, like the second one from or the third one, or the second, or the one from the bottom, the two.
I mean, we said front left, well, we're at,
I don't want to argue it or debate it.
Sure.
This to me seems like the front of the house. This is where you would enter into that existing home.
Sure.
So it's different than the actual site plan. And so I can't help but get out of my head that we're putting the ADU in the front yard. I mean, it's inappropriate to be putting a building, in the front yard of a home like this. So I'm not ready to support the location, and I understand there are reasons why you considered this, and I just, I'm just not.
well, we haven't considered it. When we were given this project, we reached out to Montgomery County Zoning a year ago. We have email correspondences with the zoning reviewer there saying we want to build this project, but we don't know what is considered the front yard, what is considered the rear yard, and they made the determination of where we could place this building, and we designed to that.
Mr. Santos, this is just, the commissioners are just giving you the
I understand.
feedback.
I understand.
Yeah,
at
I
this
appreciate
point.
that. I'm just telling you that I would have a hard time supporting the location of this ADU.
Understood.
Regarding the appropriateness of the design and the style, yeah, I'm struggling a bit with that, to be honest. To me, it does not, I don't know, there's just something about it that, as a commission, we're not trying to make it look old and look like it was there from the 1900s. But on the other hand, trying to see this here, and forgive me, but this looks a lot like my shed in my backyard. I mean, it's a large 12 by 20 shed, and it's flat, and it's got a small pitch roof like that. And maybe I'm hung up with that vision, but I'm seeing it as more of a shed than a nice little home. And I would suggest that, work with that a little bit. I think maybe this commission might be not the same that you were accustomed to, and we do change, and things do change over time, and I think maybe adding a little bit of character to it. Even my thought was that, your restrooms or toilet rooms are in the backside with the other gable. Even having that on the front might give it a little bit of character. So I'm just suggesting maybe you play with that a little bit, because I am having a hard time with the dark being so dark. I agree with Commissioner Pelletier. It seems awfully dark. I know what you're trying to do is you're trying to match the addition. I'm just struggling with that as well, just for what it's worth. I would like to see, and I'm going to say this cautiously, because the solar panels, you are so far back and it's hard to see, but we have had some situations where the solar panel mounting really has been quite obtrusive and not good. I mean, it's not not every solar panel is the same, right?
Sure.
And some of them are sleek. They're clean lines around the edge, and they mount very nicely. And then there's others that we have looked at and gone, oh my goodness, these are really distracting, from the home. So, I think moving forward, just a detail on what type of panel you would intend to use, I think would be very valuable. So I think that's really my comments.
We did submit specs from the solar consultant on the mounting and everything,
I don't know that I saw
and what the
them
panel.
They were just, Commissioner Gall, those were delivered after
okay.
the staff report was sort of put to bed, and staff did see that as big of an issue. We can talk about that spec, but I think staff is generally supportive of the spec provided. There were larger issues about the placement and massing of the ADU that staff wanted the HPC to focus on tonight. Sort of big picture items, and then we could get into some of the nitty gritty.
And I agree, given how far it would be from view from the street, I think that it'd be hard to tell whatever solar panel, but
Sure.
Thank you for that.
Anybody else have some comments? Commissioner Pelletier.
I kind of agree with Commissioner Galway about I understand this is a weird lot, and at first I was like, yeah, they're putting this ADU in the front yard, but there's all kinds of intermediary stuff going on. I don't have an issue so much with the placement of the ADU as the design of it. I think the plan is really efficient and cute, and it's the exterior, I feel like it's a little half-baked at this point. I feel like it's more shed-like than it is kind of sleek Scandinavian. I think it could just use a little. I think because the detailing of the main house, because it has the addition, but it also has a lot of character and stuff on the historic house. I just feel like it needs a little more something, like maybe a couple of different materials, or I'm not even sure. But it just seems like if it is going to be in the front yard, it should have a little more character to it. Like the front stoop, I guess you would call it, which just looks like a couple of wires of brick. I just feel like it needs a little bit more designing.
Do you mind if we show, because this corner really shows the addition, and there's a light component and a dark component, which isn't very clear in the other photos.
Here, speaking to my mic.
So
That is the addition.
This is, let the record show, he's showing a photograph of a better photograph of the addition than it showed up in the package.
Very attractive.
Yeah, and I think that, but again, those windows kind of have a bar going in the middle of them, I think, and there's a couple of different colors and there's a couple of different materials going on. There's a metal roof, a standing seam metal roof with a higher pitch. I understand what you're going for. I think you could take the design that you've presented to us today of the exterior and just kind of take it to the next level. Like, you've got a nice railing around the deck on what you've submitted. It's really, and I understand this is a preliminary, but I would like to see it, I would like to see it look more like that addition, because I don't think it does at the moment. As far as, and that's, thank you, because that does help. The appropriateness of the design is what I'm concerned about. The siting of it, it doesn't look like you have a lot of choice, and I think based on the fact that it's so far back from Dorset, I'm not as concerned about the siting as Commissioner Galway is, but my only issue with the materials is that I'd like some more information on the windows, like the what's the word I'm thinking of?
The longevity of the vinyl.
The longevity of the color and finish of the windows and what the warranty of the windows is. But that's it. Thank you.
And also, that photograph you just showed us, could you send it to staff, please?
Yes.
To be part of the record?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments? Commissioner Radu?
I agree with Commissioner Pelletier's. I think that I don't have an objection with the location, but I do agree that this is kind of the front. I mean, it is the main entry to the house, whether you call it side or I didn't see in the package anything on the other sides of the house. So it seems like, because of the access and everything, this is the front of the house. So, I mean, it's a space that one sees at least, in terms of arrival there. But for most people who are in the district, I mean, walking on the streets, they're not going to see it. So that, to me, that is the most important. So that's why I don't have a problem with the location. But I do agree that the design has to be a little more refined. And I don't have a problem with any of the materials. Or the color, for that matter. I think it's far enough from the street, but I think it's just a little bit of the design. But I'm hoping that this is a preliminary anyway, so you're going to slightly improve on the design and the materials and presentation.
It looks like I'll close out with comments. I'm also concerned with the location of this ADU because I agree with Commissioner Galway that this is historically the front of the house. It may be an odd lot, it may be, completely surrounded, but but if this house goes up for sale, that's going to be the picture shot, that's the front of the house. So I'm also having trouble with positioning an ADU in line with the front of the house. But that's something you're going to have to take up with zoning, and if you want to move this ADU around, I would say with the solar panels, I also agree with Commissioner Galway is that we see them all the time where there's especially on dormers, they just never look right. They always look bad, and in this case, if you're not getting enough power out of it, don't bother. Get everything you can off of the one front roof. And because it just looks really bad when you've got, these gable angular planes that don't align and they don't. Now, recently I did see, and I don't remember the name of the manufacturers, 2 new solar shingle companies, not Tesla, but 2 other companies that might be worth exploring to see how expensive they are.
I talked to one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember, it's G something.
Yeah, that's one of them.
And it sort of looks very, it's not panels, but it's also not shingles. It's kind of
Okay.
goes on top, but they said they couldn't do it.
Okay.
And I can't remember the reason, but they did come and they looked and
Yeah.
they couldn't do it.
And I mean, we go around with this a lot with all the applicants and that, trying to find a good product and because the salesmen just come and sell their product, and it's worth sometimes holding out.
The other issue that we've encountered is that sometimes it is tough to then find the product that looks right, but then a lot of times they won't do the project because they want a minimum amount of panels to sell.
Yeah,
Which is
yeah.
where we've also run into the issue. So we finally found someone who's willing to do a small job, and this is what we came to. But if you think that roof line H is sufficient and we don't need to put panels on the other.
Well, I mean, it's really
roof
your
lines.
call, but H, the way it lays out is more appropriate. That's what we encourage applicants to do, is do something that makes visual sense and isn't like what's happening on the other side. And I'm also concerned with the style of the architecture, and I completely concur with the other commissioners in that it's not there yet. It's a little more IKEA than DC Design Magazine. So there's a layer, or there's you need to go through one or two more steps to really get this thing looking very sharp and modern. You know, when you think about the great mid-century houses that were just beautiful and still are, usually at great cost for maintenance, but they were just beautifully done. And I think you need to take several more rounds with your design to get it to that point that you don't have to have expensive materials. You just have to have really tight, good detailing. I think the photograph you showed us was very informative. I think you really need to look at doing a metal roof, if you can, with the solar shingles, because that really polishes up the look of what you're trying to do. And the same with the windows. Your detailing just needs to be spot on so that it looks less like a shed and more like this architectural element in a grassy field, which is kind of what you're going for. So just push yourself to go that next layer on. As far, your products are looking good. I am really torn, though, with your vinyl clad window versus what we normally require, simply because we do have this standard. Your property, it is an ADU. Your property is completely surrounded by other properties, but again, we're relating this to the historic structure and making sure everything is up to the same standard. Pella was used on the addition. And I'm not saying you have to use Pella again, but you want that same level of quality. So I'm not going to weigh in one way or the other yet on the window. It just, we really do push very hard. Now, this is a non-contributing resource? No.
It's a post-1915, so there's only, again, 2 categories within
Okay.
Somerset, but they are both reviewed under the same standards.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. Well, that's what you got to deal with, is the kind of, if you can make your case for these windows, then with the staff. But you've got to get a pretty high bar with these windows to meet up with the standard, which is what we recommend usually. And I think I'm going to quit while I'm ahead on the comments, because this is a really interesting project. We support ADUs. And I think what you're trying to do, which is, stay on the property, keep the house within the family, is very admirable. And budgets are always tight, but I think with this one, this needs to be this minimalist little jewel box sitting there next to the older house. And I don't think you're there yet. So keep working on it.
Do you mind going to the elevations just so that we can get a little bit of maybe feedback? Like, do you you mind going to the renderings? I'm sorry, just since they're color. It's okay. Like, do you think, imagine the vertical siding were like that lighter wood product that's on the addition? Do you think that would do it? The thing is, the reason why it's masked the way it is because we're also up against a zoning rule of 20, on an accessory building, you can't have a wall plane that's more than 24 feet long. If you do, you have to start stepping it, or you can have the wall continue, but then you have to set the building in. And we're up against the existing house and the retaining walls and a lot of other factors, which is why the shape of the building ended up being what it is.
Yes, Commissioner Pelletier, please do.
I don't think it's really the shape of the building. I don't have an issue with the shape. It's this, I mean, forgive me, this sounds really derogatory. I don't mean for it to, but it's the monotonousness of the finishes. Like on the addition, you've kind of got this massing with the punch windows, and then you've got this curtain wall piece. And they're two different materials, they're two different colors. The windows are kind of treated differently. And the brick, I don't understand where the brick came from. Like you could have a concrete patio like you've got on the addition. Like I'm trying to draw some.
It's a wood deck, I'm sorry.
Oh, is it wood?
Yeah, it's a wood deck.
Oh.
Pressure treated wood deck.
Even on the fronts? Even on the faces you're doing?
Yeah, if you zoom in, I don't know if you can zoom in.
I'm just looking for some more parallels with the addition on the house. I understand from what you're telling me that that's the aesthetic that you're going for with the ADU. I just don't see it. I don't see the tie-in with the existing house, which, I mean, I don't have a problem with the roof, and one of the things that we talked about when we were discussing solar panels is some kind of dark shingles is the best thing that you can do if you're going to cover it with black solar panels, so it all kind of integrates. So, I mean, the roof, that's fine. If you could pitch up the roof a little bit, I don't know, it might match. Or you have overhangs on. We have overhangs on your addition, and everything's very tight, and there aren't any overhangs on that. And you don't have any gutters. I don't see any gutters on here. Well, I guess they're there.
We have
They're
gutters, but
there.
they're black, yeah. Everything's black.
But I just, like, I think you're getting there. I just feel like if you're really trying to tie in with the existing house, which I think you need to, going back to the whole concept of this being in the front yard. I think if you're going to have this thing there, it's got to be a compound. It can't be this kind of different thing sitting in the yard in front of the house. So, and I don't think you're there yet, but I think you're close. I just would like to see a little bit more continuity with what you've got going on in the rest of the house.
And let me add to that, if I can, it's Commissioner Galway. I look at your proposed right side view of the ADU, and I can imagine it. And this is not what you're going for, but just bear with me a second. I can imagine it being a little log cabin type of thing in the woods where you had a little chimney or a little chimney on this side with maybe a gable end overhang or something, just to kind of give it a little bit of that non-shed look, So, but again, if you're just, it's all about being clean, linear, flush. I will respect that. When I look at it, it's just something kind of, see what you can do. Is there something you can do to, I even thought maybe a little dormer or something, and I know that's not on the other house, so, it doesn't seem, there's just.
It's right here. Like the white is kind of.
Yeah, so I don't know if that helps, but that's kind of my thoughts.
This is Commissioner Burdett. I have a question. A photograph of the addition on the house, the main house. What is the lighter colored material on that end wall? Is it stucco?
I'm sorry? Is it
I
what?
believe it's hardy plank.
Oh, Hardy.
Well, no, so the
Or it might be wood.
addition, okay, so the addition has 3 materials.
Okay.
They has, do you have access to like the internet? Would you be able to Google? If you Google Bonstra Somerset Cabin, the house will come up, will come right up. Might be easier just to have the visual. Later, okay.
I think as part of maybe a future preliminary, like if there is more evidence, if there are more exhibits or other things that you would like to submit to be responsive to the HPC, and then we can compile that together for a future discussion.
I guess where my head's going with this is, I'm looking at that end wall of the addition, that lighter material, and I'm kind of seeing it as like a stucco, even though it could be something, it may be something completely different, but it's that lighter color kind of mass.
It's wood. It's a wood
it's a
side.
wood
It's a wood
product.
vertical siding
Okay.
product, yeah.
And then the windows are this component attached to this larger thing.
It
And I'm
reads
just
like a bay.
like a bay.
Right.
And I'm just wondering if there's some interpretation of that to do with this ADU to make it look less like a shed and more like a cottage, a modern cottage, but a cottage there, setting in the yard of the house, so that it isn't just, I mean, we approved a shed on an earlier case tonight, right? Little thing. You don't want anyone to mistake what this little jewel box is for a tool shed. You want it to be the jewel box, that dark minimalist jewel in the front yard. You want it to be the next award in the DC Design Magazine, whichever one it is, or, you want it to be so special that it draws attention, it'll draw the attention, even if nobody ever sees it there in the yard. And that's just pushing this design of yours further until you hit that sweet spot of design. And I think you need to go think about it, go flip through some magazines and check out some of the mid-century architects from the 50s and 60s and kind of see what they were doing, because they sure as heck didn't have the quality of the materials that we do now, and they were really pushing boundaries. And come back and talk to us again. Okay? So really interesting. I mean, you obviously got us all talking a lot, and we appreciate your patience. But we look forward to you coming back and seeing what you've done with this design of yours. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Minutes.
This is Commissioner Dominiani. I did read the minutes,
Very good.
and I would make a motion that we approve those minutes.
Terrific. Do I have a second?
This Commissioner Galway also read the minutes, and yes, I have a second.
And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Terrific. Those minutes are approved. Commission item. Do we have one?
I have no unless the commission has any items for yourself. I have a few staff items.
Okay, then staff items. We'll just move right past it.
Okay, thank you. Next Thursday, the Tasty Diner case is coming before the planning board. Historic preservation staff will be there to present the HP and the HPC's position on this case. You've already sent a letter to the planning board. If anybody would like to testify on behalf of the HPC, please let us know. Under the planning board's new rules of procedure, we need to get you signed up 2 days in advance of the meeting. We can no longer sign you up the day before. Also, as discussed in our work session, staff will be putting an item on our August agenda to discuss our work program through the end of 2024. We discussed, we'll be putting on the work items regarding the upcoming historic preservation master plan amendments. We have several that are associated with different master plans that are under consideration that are on the planning board's work program. We can include some budget updates. We can include updates on continuing education opportunities for the commissioners. Is there anything else that at this time that you would like me to add to that, and we can continue the discussion as well.
Nothing comes to mind.
Great, thank you.
I would just like to, if anybody's going to volunteer to go to the zoning planning board hearing, they do not put us at the head of the line. So you get to go in with everybody else. And so just plan a little bit of time if you're going to do it. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.